But as they've said before, it is extraordinary that 1 billion people go to bed every night hungry in the world. And yet at the same time, roughly the same number of people, 1 billion people, wake up each day having to deal with the problems of being overweight and obese to the point where their lives are likely to be cut short by diet-related diseases. The global food system is a failing system. It's remarkably sophisticated in one way, but incredibly fragile and insecure in another. It can deliver you and me a perfect green bean that's been sprayed with chemicals and shrink-wrapped and air-freighted and measured to within 1 millimetre of uniformity to your doorstep, and yet it can't feed the people of Africa on whose land it was grown. It's capable of delivering highly subsidised American and European commodity crops like corn, soya, wheat and rice and palm oil into a food system. It breaks them down into constituent parts and then rebuilds them into junk food that can't even keep our children healthy. And it is a system in which just a handful of multinationals have captured the value of that food chain at every point. 3 huge global companies dominate seed sales, which seed used to be the provenance of farmers, no longer. If you look at processing, enormous processing companies in dairy and meat production dominate global production and take most of the profit out of it. The same applies in retailing. Certainly in this part of Europe, most countries, 3 or 4 global retailers will dominate control and access and your access to food. And it's so clearly a system unfit for the challenges coming. We've heard a bit about the challenge of climate change. Within 10 years, I mean this is within our lifetimes, it's not something a long way down the track. We know that climate change is going to put pressure on land, increase the amount of agricultural land that no longer is fertile, no longer able to produce. It's likely to produce more extreme climate events of drought and flood and the sorts of famines and disease that were so clearly illustrated in the Great Irish Famine. It's using resources in the most profligate way. The livestock alone of Europe require an area 7 times the area of Europe to keep them in feed. I had a great Irish breakfast of bacon and sausage, but we are all part of this system, which is completely unsustainable. And as the rest of the world develops, if they all adopt these lifestyles, we'll need 3 planets to feed them in the way that we're doing. Now these things don't happen by chance. As the previous speakers say, they happen because of government policies. We've had enormous subsidies to these commodity crops, which have made it impossible for people in poorer countries to compete. We've forced open their agricultural markets through WTO, through various international trade agreements. And the upshot of that has been to drive farmers, small farmers, increasingly off the land and concentrate power and resources in the hands of the big companies and capital. And this is a system that can't go on. So as I walk along this rather long road, I'm going to think that I can vote with my feet for political change, and I hope my feet aren't too sore to have made a point by the end, and think about my own kind of consumption and the role it plays in sustainable development and just the equitable distribution of resources, whether the way I eat and consume and feed my own family is also part of this system that fails people in poorer countries. And it's so important that the lessons of history are remembered, because it's only when the ghosts of suffering past are remembered and we learn from them that we have any hope of a fairer future, a more equitable distribution of the food and resources that there are for the rest of the world. Happy walking.